Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the equipment that I use, and you'll see me using in all these videos, and things that I suggest when you're doing your groundwork or you're doing your ridden work or you're following these videos, the equipment that you would also use as well. We'll start here with this rope halter. All my rope halters are 6mm rope halters, and they're made of polypropylene rope. Okay. Now, the reason I like to use a rope halter, although I think if you have a horse that's not very sensitive, he's kind of learnt to pull on people, then a rope halter can be good because the rope's thin. It sort of makes him uncomfortable when he starts pulling on you, and kind of encourages him to not do that. The main reason I like to use these rope halters is their durability. Okay, there's not things that are going to snap and break. You've not got the metal rings and things like that, or the stitching, which tends to degrade over time and can break. It's very durable. I've got rope halters that I use every day on horses that we've had in training, and they might last you 10 years. Really, these are very durable pieces of equipment. All my halters, I'd have a tie-on rope. I don't really like to use clips. I find that sometimes you'll have these clips will kind of flick up and snap them in the jaw or whatever, and again it's something else that can fail. So all my ropes are tied on to these rope halters, and if I need to use a longer line with a clip on, and then what I would tend to do is just tie the rope around the neck and clip it on. So, and again, lead rope wise, I'm not really fussy. I like something within the region of 12 to 15. I have some lead ropes that are a little longer. If I'm working with a horse that's maybe a bit bigger, maybe wants to, a bit flightier, then maybe I'll use a longer lead rope. But I think 12 feet is pretty much ideal. You're not going to get yourself tied in too much of a knot, and that's kind of perfect sort of length. Okay, so that's the rope halter. Another piece of equipment you'll see me using a lot, and this is a piece of equipment I think you're better off starting at the intermediate stage with, is a flag. Okay, now this is my flags are steel shafts with plastic handles, and again I like the steel shafted flag because it's durability. These flags are real tough, and they're almost impossible to break. I've never broken one myself, so they're just that much durable. But you can get them with sort of plastic handle, and again, that's absolutely fine. They've just got this little bit of kind of material on the end, and you'll see this one's had better days. It's sort of a bit worn and weathered. And again, you watch the videos. I like to use these for the groundwork. Initially, I think it's good to learn how to use the tail of your rope at the foundation stage. I think it's good that you get your horses comfortable with some of these exercises. But I think the flag, it allows you to be a lot more accurate with where you're positioning it in terms of moving different parts of the horse's body. It's another thing that you can develop some confidence in your horse with, to where he gets used to things kind of flapping and moving around. And I think it's just a really good all-round piece of equipment, okay, for the groundwork. As I mentioned before, I will use a longer rope at times. This is a 22-foot rope. I think this again is better for the intermediate stage and the more advanced groundwork exercises. I don't use this a lot, but if I'm messing around, maybe I'm trying to do some advanced loading where I'm loading the horse from distance, or maybe I'm working the horse at faster speeds on the circle with the cantering or jumping. Then maybe a 22-foot line's also a good thing to have. And again, more for the intermediate and the advanced stage. I think at the foundation stage, it's hard enough sort of managing a short 12-foot lead rope, let alone when you've got 22 feet and you seem to be wrapped in rope all the time. The other thing I would say is, the reason I don't like to use a flat nylon lunge line, and it's like I say, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just my personal opinion, is that the flat nylon, they burn if I want to let some slack out on this rope and just let that rope slide through my hand and give that horse a bit more space. I can do that with these ropes, but with a nylon rope, it just gets a lot of heat, and those lunge lines can really sort of burn. And equally, it's just got that much more weight and feel to it. So, if I'm coiling it up or letting out coils, it's a lot more feel to it than maybe again those flat lunge lines. But I'm not against them, it's just not what I use. Okay? We'll move on to bridles. At the foundation stage, and you know, maybe all my horses, I would move into a hackamore, and we'll talk about that in a second. But everything I start in a loose ring snaffle bit. Okay, I find, you know, this is a sweet iron bit. Again, I'm not really fussy about equipment. I think, you know, we put too much stock in it sometimes, and we sort of use that equipment to either, you know, to attribute it to things that are positive that are happening or things that are negative that are happening. I think the importance of equipment is it helps you communicate more effectively what you want with your horse, so they understand exactly what it is that they're supposed to do. Okay, so I always start these horses in this loose ring, sweet iron, snaffle bit, and you know, I think they like this bit just fine. I think it seems to be something that's universally liked. The other thing you'll notice that maybe on my bridles that you might not have seen before is I have a leather curb strap under the snaffle bits. This is really important when you're doing a lot of lateral work with your horses. You know, we'll talk about in some of the foundation videos when we're flexing the horses around. This will stop the snaffle bit sliding through the horse's mouth. Okay, so that's an important piece. The other thing that I will always have with the horses when I'm starting them, or you know, working with them at a foundation level, is you'll see what I call a McCarty rein. So it has a loop rein in it. These are quite a heavy 5/8 inch thickness. You could have something a little bit smaller, but I like the heavier rein. Again, it's got a lot of feel to it, a lot of signal to it, so when I pick up that rein, you know, the horse feels the weight of that rein kind of lift up off its face, and that, you know, becomes a signal to the horse that, you know, I'm going to do something with that rein, and they can start to, you know, to respond accordingly. The other thing is about the loop rein is that, you know, I can put it down, I can pick it up, as opposed to a split rein or something of that description where, you know, you've got to be holding them all the time. This I can actually rest and put down on my horse's neck. So in some of the exercises that we might do, like the floating exercises and so on, that's obviously going to be that much more effective. And then we have this lead rope on it, you know, self-explanatory. It gives me something when I climb off the horse, I've got something to lead the horse with, or if I'm working with a young horse and maybe that horse needs me to get off and do some groundwork, or whatever that might be, I've got a lead rope there, readily attached, readily able to use. Okay. Then what I tend to use after I've used the loose string snaffle, so once I've got a horse to a point where he's, you know, sort of maybe 30, 40 rides on him, or you've got your horses doing everything well, is I tend to then move to a split rein with a lighter rein. Okay, you know, those McCartys are great, but there's obviously quite a lot of weight to them as well, so that when you're moving around, that rein's moving. So as the horse gets a little bit more advanced, I tend to go into a lighter rein. Okay, and then I've put this egg butt snaffle on the horse. I think that, you know, when we're doing a little bit more advancement with the horse, the egg butt seems to be a better option than the loose ring. And again, you'll see the leather curb strap on there. Just personal preference, something that you'll play around with. Like I said before, the equipment's not really important, but I wanted to go through with you what it is that I use. Now, one thing you'll see me use a lot with my horses is the hackamore, or, you know, you might call it a bosal or a bosal. I like to use the hackamores, a 5/8 inch hackamore, all my horses. I'll ride them in the snaffle bit until they're proficient in the snaffle bit, and then I'll move to this hackamore. Okay, I just think they're a great piece of equipment in terms of refining your horses. You know, it's just a great piece of equipment all round. You'll see this one's got a 5/8 main hair McCarty attached to it, half leather and half rawhide. Again, just a fantastic piece of equipment, and something that, you know, I like to encourage my students to move into beyond that snaffle bit. The final piece of equipment we'll look at here is the is the lariat. I love roping. I love playing around with roping from a personal point of view, but also I just think, you know, and from a groundwork point of view, they're a really useful tool to have, and you'll see in a lot of the videos we'll use them quite a lot. Things like getting the horse used to things around his hindquarters, getting the horse used to having ropes swung around off him. We'll work on dragging things and you know, like I said, roping maybe a dummy or something, and then using some of the body control exercises to take the rope off the head. Again, it's just about giving that horse a job to do. Some of the most confident broke horses I've ever seen are ranch horses, horses that, you know, do a lot of work day to day. People rope off them, and they're used to having ropes dragged around behind them. They're used to a lot of activity and a lot of energy. And, you know, once again, it's also a useful tool to have with some of the groundwork that we might be doing as well. Okay, so that's pretty much all the equipment I own. I'm not, like I said, you know, once again, I'm not really a big one for equipment in terms of having a lot of different bits or a lot of different rein setups. I'm very simple. I'd rather put more emphasis on the way we communicate, and you know, some of those principles as opposed to what we're using. And I think ultimately, if we put the onus on ourselves to be more effective with our communication skills, then it doesn't really matter what equipment we're using. Okay, so all this equipment will be available in our GRH online store as we update that. And if you have any questions about the equipment or anything like that, then you can just email us and we'll help where we can. Okay, give it a go.